Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks. Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Tourism and Hospitality Service Management, SOTHSM, Certificate Programs, Certificate in Tourism Studies, CTS, Ts to Tourism Development, Products, Operations and Case Studies, Block-2 Guides and Escorts, Unit-5 Discovering a Town, Guide and the City Tour, 5.0 Objectives. This unit aims at providing you the times details of arranging a city tour, sources of information required for organizing a city tour, and times details of conducting a city tour of Delhi as a case study. 5.1 Introduction. This unit takes into account the conducting of a city tour. Generally, in such tours, it is the same person only who plays the role of a guide, tour escort, or manager. Discovering a town is a fascinating subject for you as a tourist guide. As you begin to work, CMIT, you will be surprised at the number of interesting details about your own town which have probably escaped your notice. However, because each town has its own peculiarities, from the point of view of tourist interest, the discussion in the subsequent sections is only intended to serve as a sample. Sometimes you will be able to supplement the information given in the unit in a really substantial way. At other times you may not be able to find the suggested information. Similarly, do not expect every detail of your neighborhood of. Mode of organizing a tour of your town should follow exactly the pattern suggested here. It will be most advisable to read this unit and make your own plans with the illustrative material given here. We have taken the city of Delhi as a case study in this unit for applying most of the concepts of guiding a city tour. In the annexure, S.to sources of local information, collecting information about your locality or town is the first step in your scheme to tap its tourist potential. Everyone knows something or the other about the locality one lives in. However, when it comes to describing or explaining it to others, particularly when one is doing it professionally, one has to be better equipped. In the following subsections, you have been provided with a discussion on some of the major and more important sources of gathering local information. ~1 Books. Books are obviously the foremost source for getting information about your locality. There are available guide books describing the history, culture, and economic resources of the locality. We suggest that you collect such guides or read them in the local libraries. However, one special care must invariably be taken while using such guidebooks. In many cases, these guidebooks contain, along with history, a lot of mythological details and fables concerning the town. You should take care to sift them apart. We do not say that such details are not of use, but these should be separated from history and used as material suggestive of social fabric of the locality. The other kind of book where information about a town locality is available is the gazetteer of the district in which the town is located. You may consult the gazetteer in the library of the district or at the office of the collector of the district. Gazetteer gives you information on the following subjects of your town: times, history, geography and topography, important places, i.e. monuments, cultural heritage, art forms, etc. Times fairs, festivals and customs, times economic resources, flora and fauna, and times availability of public facilities like post office, telegraph office, hospitals, etc. For these places which have already become tourist sites, we can have detailed references in the literature produced by the state or central tourism departments. Such literature can be obtained from respective offices of the tourism department. 5.2.2 Maps. Maps are a very useful source for gathering information on a variety of subjects pertaining to a town. A general map of your town would contain details regarding times its boundary, times main markets, times the road pattern, times the location of public utility services, and times the industrial centers. If any, with the help of the map of your locality, you would be able to understand its tourism potential and plan AUP accordingly. The maps of the towns are generally to be had from the offices of the collector. municipality, and Pradhan Adhikari or its equivalent, as the case may be. 5.2.3 Pictorial records. The pictorial records are of different forms and serve a very useful purpose. The four main categories in which most of these records are likely to exist are I. Paintings and etchings, 2. Drawings and engravings, 3. Photographs, 4. Aerial photographs. One great advantage of pictorial records is that they in themselves form a significant tourist attraction. However, they help you in preparing a lucid commentary during your day-long trips. 5.3 Planning the tour. Now that you have acquainted yourself with different details about your town locality, you should be able to plan a tour of your town for an itinerant tourist or a group of tourists. The rest of this unit is structured as a case study. The general principles of guiding a city tour have been incorporated as and when we have felt it necessary to do so. The case we have chosen for elaboration here is that of the city of Delhi and inner city tour. We expect you to utilize this e-study in planning city tours of your towns, localities in similar patterns. You may in addition be innovative in such plans and may also deviate from the pattern suggested here if it be needed. In planning an inner city tour, you should be able to times identify more than one type of tour, times understand how an itinerary is organized and what goes into it, and times locate different modes of travel for the tour. 5.3.1 Variety offered. A lot of work goes into planning a tour, even when the proposed route is familiar and even when the entire package is a repeat of previous trips' years. There are still many details to review. Though standard tours may continue to thrive, today's traveler may be looking for something extra, something different, i.e., something to experience and later talk about. Obviously, not everyone is a candidate for every tour, but the variety of available itineraries reminds us that there are many places to see and things to do that are outside the typical tour package. What the careful planner must do is try to anticipate future demands of a fickle public. There are unlimited possibilities in this regard. Planning varies with the company and with the nature of the tour. Large tour operators have many of their itineraries set from year to year, but even with the traditionally popular tours, someone has to establish the initial program and someone has to keep the diversion fresh and exciting. In the case of Delhi, for example, the following type of tours are generally available. Times Delhi State Tourism Development Corporation conducts sightseeing tours in ordinary or luxury coaches which take one full 1 FA day. Times India Tourism Development Corporation includes major sites in Delhi in its package tour. Times low-cost tours conducted by different travel agencies which may or may not have the services of a tourism professional. Times tours operated by hotels where tourists stay. Such tours are often liaisoned with low-cost tours. Times tours offered by taxi drivers, mostly to domestic or sometimes an adventurous foreign tourist. It is advised that such drivers acquire some knowledge of the area to be able to do justice to their work. 5.3 To the itinerary. Organizing the itinerary is a very important aspect of a city tour. As a tour manager, you must mentally tour the entire route before the trip takes off. This will help you locate possible hitches in the itinerary set by you. Some common points to always take note of are given below. Times will the tour party have time for lunch? Times will the tour party be able to reach the place of stay on time for supper? Times will the shops be open on the day of the tour? Times have you given sufficient time to the tour party to see the architectural HGE of the city? And times is not that you have crammed too many things in the itinerary and suffocated the tour party, etc. All planned events should be nailed down. Therefore, check these details out. Tourists will also want to know these things, so having the details in advance is an advantage. Reading old itineraries or wholesaler itineraries, or package itineraries or competitive itineraries provides clues to forming an independent travel schedule. Materials may be garnered from tourist carriers, hotels, libraries, guidebooks, and the comments of agency personnel and veteran travelers. Consumers agents file reports when they return, establishing a catalog of materials for their colleagues to draw from. 5.3.3 Modes of travel. Generally, it is a luxury coach, taxi, or buses that are used as a mode. However, we would like to emphasize that motor transport is not always the best mode of travel for a city tour. In some cases, as some of you will notice, it is not even feasible to have a city tour on motor transport. It is therefore of crucial importance that you plan a convenient mode of travel for your tour party. You may also explore the possibility of engaging local transport such as cycle rickshaws and tongas for tour parties not very big in size. This mode of travel is also a very exciting proposition to the tourists. The most dangerous thing to do is guess about any aspect of the itinerary, or to act on sketchy information. Before anything is offered to the public, the tour planners should satisfy themselves that the item is as represented and that it meets all the tour standards. A model tour itinerary, for your help, has been given below. We hope you will be able to work upon it and prepare a better tour itinerary yourself. We also advise you to provide a copy of the itinerary to each member of the tour party. In many towns, we stress the most convenient and also enjoyable tour can be undertaken in the form of a walk along their streets and lanes. This way, the tour party gets to see the life of the town from close quarters. By way of a specimen, we have given here the details of one such walk along the inner city of Delhi, Annexure. This may serve as a model, but may also be modified suitably to your requirements. It is to be noted here that time is a crucial factor. The tourist should not be rushed. 504 Preparing for the tour. Preparation for the tour involves two important aspects, viz., the commentary and useful material and travel tips to the tourist. 5.4.1 Commentary. Assuming the escort is going to have something to say, even if he or she isn't doing the bulk of the descriptive work on the tour, it pays to gather material well in advance of the trip and to collect it in some readily usable form. A 3-ring notebook with flexible binder works well. 2 or 3 of these fit handily into any luggage. Perhaps one contains the itinerary, addresses, national and city maps, charts on monetary exchange, names of restaurants, list of optional tour choices, facts about entertainment selections, and other items directly pertinent to the trip. The second and third book can be filled with historical and cultural facts, jokes and anecdotes, songs, appropriate poetic and literary selections, and other materials. The first notebook helps the escort accomplish the required duties, while the second or third gives this person something to say en route. Commentary takes experience, not only in knowing what to say but in knowing when to say it and how. You can't afford to ignore important landmarks. There are also times when you'd want to make general comments about things like native music, habits, or domestic life. Take a look in the driver's mirror, or turn around and view the passengers. Are half of them asleep? Do you want to waken them? You must also know how much to say. There's no need for wall-to-wall remarks. Break the presentations up, leaving ample gaps for conversation, dozing, or personal reflection. At any one time, keep the comments brief. A 20-minute monologue is disastrous. Alternate information, songs, stories, and silence be the rule. And don't force-feed passengers with your own favorite esoteric historical theories. They can't or won't take them. One good way to break the tedium of a tour is by inviting audience participation. Perhaps 1 or 2 members can sing or tell stories. Perhaps some tour member has special knowledge of an area ahead, or relatives who came from there. Let them share. This sort of activity must be controlled, since you don't want blue material. Offensive, ethnic jokes, boring anecdotes, or drunken reveries. Stay in charge while involving the others. 5.4.2 Material and travel tips. Tour operator and travel agencies regularly supply some materials to travelers. The kind and number of these gifts vary from place to place, but the idea behind the items is to provide more comfort and interest on the trip. Some of the things frequently supplied are mail information. This would include the average number of days to be allowed for mail to various parts of the world, the cost of airmail postage to these same destinations, the correct manner to address airmail envelopes, and other pertinent data. The travel agency is usually listed below in case friends or relatives seek further advice. Passenger list. Each tour member should get a couple of these. This makes the group more congenial and aids those with short memories. Maps. Some sort of map is a nice gift. Occasionally, these maps will be pre-marked with route or the escort, and a driver may mark them at the conclusion of the journey if the passenger approves. You may also pass along various tips on everything from packing and photography to shopping and customs. It is helpful to the participant to have it all in writing. A sample has been given below. Tips: eye clothing, light summer wear, open sandals preferred, 2 sunglasses, 3 small hand towel, 4 camera with 2 to 3 rolls of daylight films, a pair of binoculars, 6 no money to beggars, etc. 5.5 Undertaking the tour. Once everyone is aboard, the coach departs, and you greet the passengers, passing on necessary information. The driver may also have a few words to say, perhaps reviewing the day's itinerary. Because some travelers like to follow the trip on their maps, a few moments could be spent outlining the precise route. Here you must remember a few important things discussed below. 5.5.1 Length of daily trip. Two planners should consider the endurance of passengers. The age of the group will have something to do with this. So will the amount of driving the previous day, the weather, the evening activities, the meals, and the general health and morale of the group. Don't push them. If possible, avoid long days back to back. Even the most energetic, curious, and adventuresome traveler gets tired of constant movement. Schedule shorter days, space out the free time. You must also consider company or governmental restrictions on the number of hours one driver is allowed to drive a coach. These have to be calculated as part of the travel plan. Also ensure that the driver follows traffic regulations. This wins the confidence of the tourist. 5.5.2 Stops during the tour. Rest and meal stops are important and must be planned. The first rest stop usually occurs a couple of hours after departure, and another may take place a few hours past lunch. When the coach makes such a stop, sufficient time should be allowed, particularly if toilet facilities are limited. This means a halt of at least 20 to 30 minutes and the departure time must be announced. If this is an area where a tip is expected for use of washroom facilities, travelers should be warned beforehand. Otherwise, the tour manager may end up having to rescue a bewildered tourist from an irate washroom attendant. The location of the toilets should be pointed out, along with other places, such as coffee shops and sightseeing areas that are sited nearby. Shopping should be discouraged on these short stops, but it can't be completely cancelled. Some tourists will always like to pick up a thing or two. In some small towns, there are no convenient public restrooms. This means the passengers must avail themselves of the hospitality of hotels and restaurants. In this case, the tour manager should suggest they split up and not all descend on the same place in one go. Some limited flexibility may be granted on rest stops, but still schedules must be met. Every tour has its photographers, casual or serious. They'll want opportunities to take pictures. This means some unplanned stops en route when photo possibilities appear. Since almost everything looks exciting and picturesque to the stranger, such pauses must be kept at a minimum. This is the price the photographer pays for the other benefits of a group tour. When a scenic spot is reached, the coach may halt and passengers be invited to take their shots. Warn them each time about crossing the road. As soon as they've had a reasonable chance for a few pictures, signal them aboard. Nobody should take time to climb a nearby hill or wander off into the fields. Non-photographers are usually tolerant of these stops but up to a point only. Unless the tour group is quite small and the touring area well known, the tour escort shouldn't figure on making a random decision about lunch. In all planned tours, the luncheon stops are always mapped out in advance. If possible, avoid remote places, but if the itinerary unavoidably places you in such a spot, then either pack a lunch or book lunch at some convenient facility. Arriving with 40 people in a town that has only one small hotel is a serious mistake unless the hotel has been forewarned. Smaller groups have fewer meal problems. With a dozen or so travelers, it is always possible to stop without specific reservations at a place where there are several restaurants, hotels, and coffee shops. The groups can then divide up and patronize a number of these. The escort should make sure, however, that these spots are clean, comfortable, reasonable, and that they serve decent food. Allow a minimum of an hour for lunch under ideal circumstances. An hour and a half is more realistic. Passengers who finish eating early can shop or browse. Set a time for return to the coach. If the meal is part of the tour, vouchers or travel service orders are used. Avoid a situation where no vouchers are available and you want to feed the group. Though this may be possible when you discuss it with the restaurant or hotel management, identifying yourself and the tour and promising to pay later, not all managements may agree. Tourists must be accommodated at other times, for example, shopping, brief halts for the occasional craft shop, a chance to cash travel IR checks preferably at a time when everyone exercises this opportunity. Peddlers and other uninvited persons should be kept off the coach. You may occasionally bring someone you know aboard to speak a few phrases in the native language, or sing a song, or tell a story. But otherwise only two members and two personnel should be aboard. 5.5.3 Shopping. Even though surrounded by the beauty of an evening in Awadh, some tourists are still consented about what time the shops open. There are travelers for whom shopping is the highlight of the trip. They want to lose themselves in the flea market or the native bazaars. Consequently, you must allow sufficient time for them to get this out of their systems. At the same time, however, shopping time must be controlled. Some members may resent the amount of time being allotted to this activity. There must be a blend. While it's disastrous not to allow some reasonable time for people to frequent the shops, it's just as annoying to pull up to every craft or clothing sign. Know the days and hours when shops are open. Shops may close at noon and reopen later in the afternoon. You must check on this when making out the itinerary. If you've calculated incorrectly, you had better consider some adjustment. Some recommendations to tour members may be welcome, but the tour escort shouldn't be put in the position of touting specific shops. Warn tour members about possible rip-offs or about shopping areas to shun at night. Despite your lectures, however, some tour members will never get the local currency straight. Charts showing the various coins and bills are a terrific aid, but even then, many tourists merely reach into their pockets, extract a handful of change, and say, "Here, take what you want." Those who master the finance not only shop more wisely, they also get an ego boost. Even more valuable is the tour escort who times can spot fakes, times knows that items using endangered species may be confiscated in customs, and times has some idea of what similar goods cost elsewhere. This doesn't mean, however, that the tour escort is in any way responsible for purchases or for their safe arrival home. These are the buyer's risks. In some areas, haggling is part of economic life. Merchants expect the buyer to argue about the price and to attempt to reduce it. The tourist should have some idea about how much he or she intends to pay for an article, and whether or not this is really a bargain. 5.5.4 Problem spots. Some two problems are beyond the control of even the most cautious tour escort. Most, however, can be anticipated and avoided. A strong argument can be made for keeping a checklist and for having a set of detailed rules and instructions. Think about difficulties that might arise and do a dry run on your strategy 10 meet them. Keep a list of local contacts in every region you visit and know where you can turn for help. Besides experience and careful planning, tact and common sense are valuable assets, especially when the unexpected occurs. Above all, don't panic as too much depends on you. Maintain a calm demeanor, even if there are problems in plenty. Getting excited is not only demoralizing to others, but also prevents you from thinking clearly and logically. Some of the common problems you might face are discussed below. Luggage. Bags are one of a tour's major headaches. You can't check them too often. People leave something behind or grab the wrong bag. Travelers frequently fail to heed the warning about adding and subtracting luggage. It's often the innocent who suffer. They are minors, toilet articles, or underwear or jackets until the lost items catch up. They may have to replace things in order to cope, or depend on the sympathy and generosity of fellow tour members. When you are on the move, make certain you allow sufficient time for the bags to make it to the proper hotel. It is also sensible planning to leave expensive items like jewelry in a safe place at home. Tourists should take only what is needed. They should identify their bags inside and out, keep a list of items being carried, and mark their luggage with something distinctive so that it won't be picked up by mistake. 2. Missing tour members. Suppose you are checking people in at the point of departure, and one or two persons have failed to arrive. Remember that your first responsibility is to the tour as a whole. This means you'd ordinarily depart without the missing persons. Exceptions to this rule would be if you happen to have this person's passport and he can't leave the country without it, or his tickets, although these may be left at the airline or hotel counter, or if the individual is elderly and you have no idea where he or she is. You can't merely abandon people. In these extreme cases, you would turn the group over temporarily to some responsible tour members and join them as soon as you can, if tour members become lost en route. Check the hotel, fellow passengers, likely area, locals and, as a last resort, notify police. Before you move on, you must know what happened to them. Perhaps you may have to delay departure until you know the whereabouts of the missing person. 3. Loss of a passport. This is a most important document and should be kept on one's person at all times. There could be routine checks by authorities, or a need for identification when financing, purchase, or a requirement when cashing checks in a foreign bank. Warn tour members not to leave their passports in restrooms, hotel rooms, or on the airplanes or coaches, should a passport be lost. Go over all the places where it might have been mislaid. If nothing turns up, contact the nearest embassy. They will require proof that it is really lost, like a statement from the police, plus the witness of a person with a valid passport, perhaps yourself. Tour escorts should carry a list of tour members' passport numbers, plus date and place of issue. Loss of a passport is always a serious matter, but it may be far more serious in some countries than others. Consulates and embassies are normally closed on weekends and at night, so a message should be left about the lost passport, with a request for assistance and a phone number where you may be reached. Cautious travelers also keep their passport number in several places and may also have an extra passport photo handy. 4. Loss of funds and tickets. Loss of these items is the responsibility of the individual, but the tour escort should know how to advise the traveler. It's nearly impossible to recover stolen cash unless money is found by an honest person who has the time to seek you out. But the best solution is to carry very little cash. If tickets are lost, either by you or by a traveler, the loss should be reported immediately, to carrier and to your own agency, as well as to the operator handling that portion of the tour. Substitute tickets should be provided and any difference can be settled by you at a later date. Illness, travelers are expected to provide for their own medical needs. This means bringing along their own drugs, prescriptions, and diets, and making their own arrangements for any checkups or hospital stays. The tour escort, however, will probably carry items like aspirin, cough drops, nose drops, band-aids, and remedies for upset stomachs. Yet one must be careful about dispensing these. A knowledge of first aid, including artificial respiration, is a handy skill. You may never need them, but people will look to you for assistance in any emergency, including illness, colds, headaches, nausea, and diarrhea are common ailments, but when traveling with a group they become serious maladies. Colds and respiratory infections spread rapidly. Try to get any sick person to a doctor as soon as possible for that person's good, as well as the health of the tour. 5.6 Summary. We hope you have acquainted yourself with the essential knowledge of guiding a city tour. As slated earlier, the work on guiding such a tour begins with identifying sources of local information. Some important sources, for example, are books, maps, and pictorial records. After this, you get on with planning the tour, where you pay attention to the varieties of the city tour, the itinerary, and the different modes of travel available in your area. The next stage is that of making preparations for the tour. You arrange interesting material about the town to be used for a commentary on board a coach. You also provide some utility material as gift to the tourists, as also some travel tips relevant to your area. Now you are ready to embark on the tour. But you take care that the length of the tour does not become unbearable the members of the tour party. Do not forget to provide brief rest stops and lunch stops as also time for shopping. Also take care of a few problem spots, particularly loss of luggage and money and illness to any tour members. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates and we will see you with the next chapter.